later. You cannot build your low notes because by pressing your voice down and broadening it down, you lose your high notes. And so that has to be a natural foundation. My first German opera was Valkyrie, and that was in Covent Garden, London. I was engaged and had studied it down in Bayreuth. I should sing it in Bayreuth that same summer. But before the Bayreuth season was the London season, and I came over there to get my orchestra rehearsal, and I came down to the opera every day to Bruno Walter, but yeah, you will hear. And because they were so very occupied, they were doing Rosenkavalier for the first time, Strauss Rosenkavalier. So now the day came of the performance, and I came down there again and saw Bruno Walter. I said, well, I'm singing with you tonight, Maestro, but I want to tell you that I never sang it with an orchestra in my life. Now, he nearly died, of course, but they say, no, you can't, we had to get somebody else. But there was nobody to get. I said, I have studied down in Bayreuth, and I know it pretty good, so I think that they'll be all right. So I sang my first Valkyrie in Covent Garden to the festival there without any have heard it or sang it with an orchestra before.
Lauritz Melchior, the one and only. At the time of this 1969 interview, he was a giant of a man, still like a ramrod in his bearing, but he was getting around with some difficulty. He died in 1973, a few days short of his 83rd birthday. Through the years, I did not even try to conceal the fact that Victoria dos Angeles was a special favorite of mine. When she came to the vocal scene on December 9, 1971, her operatic career was already winding down, but she was still actively concertizing. We talked about her special way with French music.
I have loved from my childhood French language and literature, French literature, and so this make me, my approach was near to French than Italian, and after for my way of singing, I find it always much in the intimate way in the French style, so I feel more happy in the French composers, in opera and also in the lieder
songs as well.
Songs also.
Is there a favorite French opera role that you favor more than any other?
Well, yes, it is. It's a success, I think, was Manon, Massenet Manon. But as a role, I think the best, I love it, was Mélisande, Péléas et Mélisande by Debussy.
Yes.
I love it, the words by Maeterlinck and the music by Debussy. And it is not for a great many people, you know, it is
yes.
for a minority.
A wonderful Mélisande, to be sure, but just for the record, she was a terrific Mimi, Violetta, Rosina, Desdemona. It's all on records. Richard Tucker was in his liveliest, most vigorous form when he visited the vocal scene on March 14, 1974. As he recalled various events in his long career, he voiced a concern about some of his younger colleagues.
Being in the enviable position as I am today of being, I think, the oldest singer at the Metropolitan. When I say oldest, I'm there 29 years now, and I'm just ahead of Bob Merrill by a few months, 6 months or 7 months. We both are at the pinnacle of our careers, you see, and it's only because we have been given the blessing of guidance between our vocal teachers and our coaches. You know, people have always asked me, as you once mentioned, are you ever going to sing Othello? You know, this is always the inevitable question. But, you know, I can sing Othello if I want to. Why not? But I feel myself that the voice would not fill the requirements that this role demands. And that is the reason why I don't sing
Yes.
Othello.
Well, again, it shows judgment because you are the best judge of your own.
That's correct.
Of your own capabilities. I also noted, I think, in several interviews you have indicated that of the various roles that you have had, and you've had a, I think, very large repertoire.
32 operas.
32 roles, yes. And the role of De Grieux in Manon Lescaut somehow stands out as a special favorite. Could you tell me and
so
my
right.
audience why?
I think because as an overall opera, George, this opera required such passionate singing, histrionically, emotional singing, acting, that I became De Grieux in my younger years when I first studied this role. I used to come home red-eyed, and Sarah thought I was crying. And I would say to her, just leave me be for an hour or so till I compose myself. And I honestly felt, as we know the story of the Dybbuk, the role of De Grieux became part of me. And this is the reason why, of course, the combination with the singing, I must bring it out first, that you must have the vocal prowess to sing such a role, became my favorite role.
An all-out Tucker performance. He always gave his best to the very end, which unfortunately came within a year after this conversation. In early 1976, I called on Zinka MILANOV at her Manhattan apartment for a conversation to be aired on May 20th that year in honor of her 70th birthday. We covered many things, singing techniques, personalities. Here is a bit.
Sometimes it happens that the middle it's heavy and the top is thin, you see, that can happen, you see. But the same thing with piano, you see. When you sing a piano, that doesn't mean you have to disappear.
No, of course not.
The piano has to have the same color and the same fullness, not in size, but the fullness has to be there.
Madame Milanov, your career took about 15 years of the Rudolf Bing administration at the Metropolitan. First of all, how was your relationship with Mr. Bing?
Well, that is a very delicate question, you know.
Why?
Oh, because most of the time the prima donnas don't get along with the management very well. Not always, but very often there are little difficulties. But I couldn't say I had any difficulties with Mr. Bing until the end of my relationship with him. But I think that it probably is also a reason because everybody said that Mr. Bing is difficult. But I personally couldn't say that because he was not difficult with me because he probably thought that he needed me. I won't be modest now.
No,
but
you shouldn't.
I think that he needed me, and I think that a manager, he's a smart man, he knows that only a good cast can be success for the management, you know.
How true that is. True indeed. It was true in 1976 when this interview took place, and it is still true in 1988 as I celebrate the 1000th consecutive program on the vocal scene.
Hi, how are you, George?
Hi, delighted to see you. That smiling voice belongs to Marilyn HORNE, who visited with me on December 2nd, 1976, as she was preparing for the Metropolitan Opera production of Meyerbeer's Les Prophètes. It was a season when she also contemplated some career decisions.
The best thing for me to do and keep my voice in its most healthy state is to choose the moments when I sing those roles and not say maybe sing 5 or 6 performances of Amneris a year. Same for Eboli, that kind of thing.
Yes.
And intersperse them with the bel canto things.
I see. Certainly, I feel very happy about this decision because you have become and you are such a mistress of the bel canto style that you leaving the field would leave a tremendous gap, and it's very, very difficult to fill that gap.
Well, thank you very much. I'm not too much of a creature of jumping in and just sort of saying, well, now I'm going to do this and now I'm going to do that, in spite of the fact that I have a sort of an outgoing nature, and people think that, oh, you know, I have this positive, aggressive kind of feeling towards myself and my career. I don't at all. I'm quite reticent about taking on things that I think may be what can I say, a complete extension of my abilities.
Yes. Was that bel canto technique, especially that remarkable florid technique that you show in your recordings of Rossini, was that already yours, or did it take extra study later on?
No, I already had that.
You already had
I already had that because it happened to be something through my young years, my teenage years, that I particularly admired, and I worked on it.
Yeah.
And I sang a lot of Handel and a lot of Bach. I didn't sing very much of the actual, what we call the bel canto
Yes.
period, maybe Una voce poco fa, you know. But an awful lot of early music that called for the florid singing, and I worked on it.
That was music from Rossini's Semiramide, and, as Marilyn HORNE earlier told us, she worked on it. Carlo Bergonzi is concerned about his English and rarely gives radio interviews. But we are old friends, and he made an exception in my case. In November 1980, he came in beaming, following a performance of La Gioconda at the Met, for which he got a rave review in the New York Times. I chose the music appropriately. Carlo, at this point, how can you still sing so beautifully that you get that type of review?
My dear George, if I can still sing the way I do, it is because I imposed a great deal of sacrifice upon myself.
What kind of sacrifice are you thinking about?
The sacrifice is every day, every moment, for the long career. You know, I prepared the opera, Aida, For Celestino, Elisir d'Amore, Canio, Pagliacci, but every time I sing this opera, che ho studiato, I studied many years ago, I begin study the same time.
Now, you said something about phrasing, because Mr. Erickson and many other critics, including myself, have always praised that very, very special elegance of your phrasing. How does one acquire that? How were you taught that?
This is natura.
Nature.
Naturale. C'è un cantante, the singer sing only the note, read the autore, the Verdi, Puccini, or the other autore. I understand the phrases. When I sing, I transformed myself in Canio, in Andrea Chenier, or in the other role. For this,
yes,
the phrase is elegant.
You have an instinctive and intuitive response to the different roles that you do not really need a coach or a teacher, certainly not at this point, but there was a time when there must have been someone to guide you.
You know, I am made myself.
Yes.
I am autodidactic, no?
A self-made artist.
And I don't need a teacher. Studiando solo, I study alone.
Yes.
I reflect for 1 hour, 1 day, 10 days, 1 month, and maybe, no, not maybe, it's true, for 6 months. When I'm ready, I tell maestro or management the theater, I am ready for this opera.
That role. Yes.
This is.
He makes it sound so easy. And I might add, as I am recording now, my friend Carlo, at age 64, is still getting rave reviews. From one remarkable tenor to another, now we go to Nicolai Gedda, who visited me in September 1981. In the context of a typical Gedda multilingual program, we played perhaps his most incredible record. Fantastic. How do you do this thing? I know
Well, I
you
don't know
began by
myself.
telling us that part of the secret is that you have to have a good technique. But a technique like that, I know one isn't born with it, but how can one acquire it?
Well, I think I was born with it. I think because when I woke up and had a tenor voice, I had this kind of voice, not that high, but I sang with that kind of mezza voce.
Yeah.
That was my natural voice.
Did it come
and
to
high,
you
very high.
early in your
Small.
training as a choir, when you sang with a choir?
Yes, I sang it as a boy, and
Yes.
then later on I continued to sing
Yes.
as a tenor. But I only always had the facility for the top.
Yes.
So what I had to do when I started to study
Yes.
lessons is to build it up, with the support and all that.
But this is more than just the top. This is the top of not belted out, but a sustained.
Well, it's a mixture
with the
of
body.
I would say it's a mixture of a gift from above and technique
And hard work.
and hard work. Yes.
That was the aria Magische Töne from Carl Goldmark's The Queen of Sheba. From a high tenor to a deep bass, Martti Talvela, who visited me in January 1984. Among other things, we talked about his sensational Boris Godunov, where in his death scene he takes a realistic fall that never fails to stun the audience. How do you protect yourself against getting hurt?
Oh, for a couple of first times I was I had some blue points in my body.
Uh-huh.
But then I learned it really to take those steps exactly.
Yeah.
Thinking how to do it, how to manage it, and you can fall down without to kill yourself.
Yes, realistically, but not too realistically.
Yeah. Somebody told it it's already too realistic. But when he goes up with his son, and a man dying shouldn't think anything. But I do not think. Only this one first step I have to take. Thinking. It has to be there in a certain point.
Yes, to fall a certain
Yeah.
way. Yes.
To fall a certain way, and then I cannot hurt me.
It is always encouraging to know that you come back after each fall and you look stronger than ever. Well, the death of Boris is too somber an illustration for such a joyful anniversary. We are going to stay with Mussorgsky, but in a more light-hearted selection. Need I say that this was the famous Song of the Flea by Mussorgsky, sung by my guest, Martti Talvela. My friend Martti Talvela is celebrating his 20th anniversary season this year at the Met in Mussorgsky's Hovanщina. And I have time to share my own celebration now as I recall a brief visit with the wonderful Bidu Sayao. It took place in May 1984, and we talked about the Metropolitan Opera Guild release of a memorable 1947 broadcast of Gounod's Romeo and Juliet. Jussi Björling was Miss Sayao's partner then.
Good morning, good afternoon, what you prefer. I am very happy to be here again with in New York to sing at the Metropolitan for the opening night. I hope I will be in good form to give you a nice evening.
Thank you very much. We talked partly in present tense, partly in future tense, because we are recording it a few days before the opening night, but the audience will hear it after the opening night. And we are going to begin our musical portion with something that opera singers and actresses in general like to hear because it sort of identifies the profession. And what I mean is the entrance aria of Adriano Lecouvreur, which tells our audience and any audiences what the mission of an artist is, a humble servant of the genio creatore.
Io sono l'umile
L'umile
in
ancella.
Italian is io sono l'umile ancella del genio creatore.
And here it is. It sounds even better when sung. Son l'umile ancella from Cilea's Adriano Lecouvreur. This is a role that came somewhat later in your repertoire, but as you just told me, you have often sung it in concerts.
Yes, I have sung this aria many times in the concert. But later I've done the whole opera. I made my debut in Bologna. Was in collaboration with La Scala of Milan.
Mm-hmm.
And after this debut, I have sung in every theater of the world,
including the Met.
Including the Met.
Including the Met, yes. Well, now, you are, at least in the beginning of your career, you were a soprano lirico.
Yes, lirico. I stayed for many, many years in these roles.
Yes.
But later, the voice developed different. I still lyrico soprano with some possibility to sing some
dramatic.
more dramatic, but not really dramatic. Because
but you really kept your lyric roles for a very long time, and because you can project a youthful personality, because this is how you look. This is how you look to me across the table.
Yeah, but you know, the lyric soprano is, I think, must have a nice voice, if it's possible, a beautiful color, and the soprano lyrico must give really big expression, because it is the more normal soprano, because the coloratura can one with a top note, you know, technique, a dramatic soprano with the power of the voice, but the lyric soprano is the more normale, and if you have a character with you can put some enthusiasm, a color, expression, you won.
Absolutely. You began, actually your debut was at a very early age in 1955, and your debut role was Micaela.
Yes.
In Carmen, in Modena,
in my town.
Native town.
Yes. I remember I was so with enthusiasm. I wait with impassion for to do this debut. Naturally, the theater was sold out, and it was incredible triumph. And from this moment, I started the big
rest
career.
Is history.
Yes, but my daughter, I call my daughter Micaela for souvenir.
Well, of course, but actually, your own name is an operatic name, Mirella.
Yes, Mireille. Yes, I have sung. I recorded.
You recorded
this.
Mireille by
It's a beautiful role, but a little difficult, a little hard.
Just for my information, how big is the theater in Modena?
Is 1,200.
That's a considerable size.
At the end of 1,700 at the beginning 18, you know.
Yes.
It's a very beautiful,
historical
beautiful theater.
Yes. Well, we already began talking about Micaela, and why don't we do?
Yes, I have sung for at least all my career, my long career, but naturally in this last 8 or 9 years I leave it, because I introduce a new role, so more dramatic, and naturally you must leave something. But
that's right. You have to
stay with me for a long time.
That's right. Now we are going to hear something where you are sharing the spotlight with your childhood friend Luciano Pavarotti.
Oh yes, we grew up together.
You grew up together in Modena.
Yes.
And initially probably played in the same theater.
Oh yes, but we have been to the same teacher, and we go many times together. In Mantova to Maestro Campogagliani, and it was very nice time, because with a little car we have incredible souvenirs, and we worked studied together for a long time, and after I go in one way, Luciano in another, but
you
sometimes
maintain contact.
Oh yes.
And of course especially when you meet in Modena.
Luciano for me is like a brother because we grow up together.
You go back to so many years,
Yes,
actually.
yes.
Well, let's hear the two of you together. A hearty applause from the audience in the Arena of Verona, which is not very far from Modena, am I right?
No, only 95 kilometers.
And we heard two young local favorites, childhood friends, Mirella Freni and Luciano Pavarotti in Parigi o Cara from La Traviata by Verdi. My guest is Mirella Freni, and we are going to continue. And it relates to La Bohème with Karajan.
The big production
Yes.
with Karajan and Zeffirelli was in 63.
63.
In 61, I was in Covent Garden for Falstaff.
Falstaff.
Yes,
That's right.
with Maestro Scholti
That's
and Zeffirelli also.
Right.
It was fantastic.
Well, I myself jumped the gun a bit because it is Falstaff that I wanted to talk about. What do you remember of this production?
But, I'm sorry, I make a mistake now because I have done Falstaff also later with Scholti, but the first time in Covent Garden was with Maestro Giulini because I was at home very quiet. I have sung naturally the aria in concert, but I don't know it all yet, all the opera, all the role. And they call me because they have some problem, I don't know, with the Nanetta in Covent Garden for this new production. And Maestro Giulini asked for me. I said, but Maestro, I must study the opera. When will be? He said, in 10 days. Oh my God. I said, I try, but I don't know. And naturally, I study very hard. I leave it. When I arrived, they were in a rehearsal with orchestra. What I can do? I don't know nothing. I was really in panic and confusion. And my first rehearsal was really incredible. I can't do a right attack a moment in the first act. And Maestro he understood it was only because I was a little nervous. Yeah. And he takes me later in the dressing room. He said, but you know very well. I said, Maestro, you are right. But I was so afraid in front of you in Covent Garden my first time. Later was incredible triumph. I start to work also with the Maestro Giulini. I to come back to the Covent Garden, but I was really in panic the first rehearsal.
Well, Nanetta is very difficult primarily, I think, because of the ensembles.
Yes, for this reason. But it's nice because it's so young, so fresh. I like it really much. This joke between the two lovers is very nice. Maestro Giulini he give it to me really the possibility to give it the right expression and also Zeffirelli he makes incredible beautiful production, a beautiful regia. Yes.
Well, then a couple of years later you recorded it with Maestro Scholti, and here is your aria from Falstaff. That was Nanetta's aria from Verdi's Falstaff, a 1963 recording conducted by George Scholti and Mirella Freni as Nanetta, and among her colleagues then were Alfredo Kraus as Fenton,
Geraint Evans,
and Geraint Evans in the title role. Wonderful cast.
Yes.
Well, after that, after 1963, it was upward. Your career really took on an international...
It's true, because I arrived to La Scala, I have sung many things, somebody discovered me, Mr. Bauer, he was in Milano, I know he said to the Metropolitan, these young singers, Mirella Freni, must be come to the Metropolitan. In 65 I arrived here. I've done La Bohème, but in the old Met. I am very proud to have sung also in the old. Oh, it was fantastic.
The old Met,
yes,
with all its great traditions. But even before that, you met a gentleman who was extremely influential on your career, and that was Herbert von Karajan.
Oh yes, because in '63 I have sung in La Scala La Bohème, this famous.
Yes.
Between us, there was incredible feeling. Without speak, without explain, we were always together. For me, really was something special. I thank God for this, because can you imagine it, to be in this feeling, to have this feeling with Karajan?
Yes.
I can't believe it. I still surprised. It was really a collaboration for at least 20 years. We have done incredible performances, records. I think someone. They stay in the history
You're absolutely
of the
right.
music, because really I thanks Maestro, because when I sang with him, I believe it to be free. It was not true, but we were in the same
same wavelength.
Yes, this is.
Yes, harmonized together.
See.
This is what I heard from many singers, that he had a very thoughtful and very scientific way of matching the singer and the orchestra.
Yes,
this was
it's
remarkable.
true. It's true. He prepared always the orchestra with special color. You must go in
supporting the singers.
It was fantastic. This fantastic.
But this Bohème at La Scala had some very interesting complications involving two tenors.
Yes, this is true.
Why don't you tell the story?
It was Giuseppe Di Stefano, Gianni Raimondi, but because I don't know well what happened, I think somebody from the direction of the theater, they say they promise to Di Stefano to do the production. A Maestro Karajan, he was in touch with Raimondi. And the contrast was not really nice.
Not the friendliest.
No. But not between the two tenors, between the direction, the tenor.
And also the fans.
Yes.
In the audience.
For this reason, was my debut. Incredible.
Had nothing to do with you, but because of the...
But naturally, I was a little worried, because after the big aria Che gelida manina, Raimondi, the tenor, Gianni, he said, perhaps somebody contrast me because they want Di Stefano. Someone they start to do, but not really much, because he sang so well. It was an incredible triumph, but after a little contrast, I must start Mi chiamano Mimi. I said, and now I was thinking, but was incredible night, really.
So by the time you got to also have a fanciulla, everything was all right.
Yes.
Okay.
No, but also with my aria was incredible, also with the tenor, but somebody try, not against me, but against the tenor.
Excitement of operatic audience.
To defend Di Stefano.
Yes. Well, we are going to hear you in Mimi's other aria, Don Delieta, and this time, because we have to introduce Karajan, so this will be from the Karajan recording.
Oh, yes.
And, well, here it is. Mimi's Farewell, conducted by Karajan, Mirella Freni, of course. And as you said, in 1965 came your Met debut.
Yes.
And as Mimi, still in the old Met, but when the Met moved into the new house, you continued a whole series
I
of
made
great...
my debut in New York, my first time in the United States. At the Met was in '65, 29 of September, I remember very well. And Maestro Cleva was the conductor.
Yes.
And Gianni Raimondi was the tenor. I remember a nice thing, because before the opera start, somebody comes, two person, Meryl Merrill, the baritone.
Robert Merrill.
Robert Merrill, the tenor Richard Tucker. Richard Tucker and Merrill, they come to my dressing room for to say, welcome in our family. We are very happy. I was so grateful because you can imagine a young singer to arrive in Metropolitan.
Yes.
Two so important colleagues, they come to you. They say you are in the family. It was for me. My heart was open. They said thanks. I embraced them really strong because I was really grateful.
Yes, it was a very nice gesture.
Yes, really incredible. I can't forget this. Really.
These were two wonderful people.
Yes.
And I was I still am very friendly with Bob Merrill, who has been here many times, and so did Mr. Tucker in past years. You did some wonderful interpretations at the Met, Liu, Marguerite, and Juliet with Franco Corelli.
Yes.
A long series of
performances. We have done many times. We have done also the tour in the Metropolitan.
And you recorded it.
Yes.
You recorded the opera.
Yes.
And then came a period where, for some reason, you were absent from the Met. Why was that?
Because I decided to stay a little more with my daughter,
with the family.
Close because with the family, because she needs me at home for to help for the study from Europa. If I am in Europe or in Italy,
not easy.
Was easier to arrive. You know,
yes.
It was my decision.
Well, and in the years that followed, when we were not given the pleasure of hearing you here, you made this change into the more dramatic repertoire.
Yes, slowly, Maestro Carolyn started to ask me to sing naturally Otello, Don Carlos, in La Scala, Simone Boccanegra. Slowly I move in this way, in these new roles. But naturally, I was always thinking, if I feel these are too heavy for me, I stop it. But no, they don't give it to me the problems, because later Manon Lescaut, Adriano Lecouvreur, Fedora, Lisa, Eugenio Onegin, Lisa in Pigdam. But because these are dramatic, but in few moments, you know, they don't stay always dramatic. You can use more the accent to give more accento and not really push with the voice.
That's right.
No.
Well, you mentioned Manon Lescaut, which is really a wonderful transition between the lyric and the dramatic.
Yes.
So we're going to hear.
Because before I always sang Manon of Massenet, this more lyrical, this, but later Puccini, I've done two, two Manon.
My guest, Mirella Freni and Manon Lescaut. Now, the influence of Karajan leading you toward the heavier roles, Elisabetta in Don Carlo, Aida,
Otello, yes.
Some people, sorry?
Verdi's Requiem.
Verdi's Requiem. Some people felt that perhaps this was harmful to your voice, but you see it differently, right?
Yes, they think many critics, they when they speak with me, they say, but it's not too much for you. I said, I try, we will see. If I feel it's not good, I go back. But working in this way, because I was enough easily for my Tecnica in my old repertoire, and naturally to sing new roles, a little more dramatic, I need to work more. This working developed more the voice, some other possibility, and but I worked always with prudenza, because I don't want to damage my instrument. Always I said also to Karajan, Maestro, if I feel also in the general rehearsal and dress rehearsal, is too much for me on stage. I said you goodbye. He said, okay.
And he was
I
understanding.
accept the risk, he said.
Yeah.
And then I never escaped, thanks God.
Yes. There is one role, when you had your 25th anniversary here at the Met,
Yes.
Met gave you a wonderful gala, you and your husband, Nicolai GEDDA,
Yes.
and Alfredo Kraus.
Yes.
And you sang one act from Marama Butterfly,
The last one, yes.
the last one. But you did not do the entire
No,
role
never,
ever.
because Karen insists for many, many years, Mirella, you must do, I want to do Butterfly with you on stage. I said, Maestro, I feel, because there is so big emotion. When you start to do many, many performances, I am sure I will be in trouble in some moment. I don't want. I refuse. For this reason, he decided to do the record at the movie. He said, "I want to have one souvenir with you in this opera." I have done. I have another record also with Sinopoli, but with Karajan also the movie.
Yes.
The película.
Well, that's a very dangerous role, and I remember...
Yes, because I listen many colleagues after when they have sung many performances of Butterfly, they have problems later, because it's normal with
the
too
emotions.
much tension,
Yes,
emotion.
the emotions, yes.
I said before, you can't stay every night in good feeling. You have a good feeling, good form. Perhaps one day you are more weak. You must push. The bill will be very, very high.
High, right. Tell me now, how did these wonderful roles in Russian literature come into your repertoire? Tatiana and Lisa.
Lisa, but I must say that last 2 months ago, I've done a debut in La Pulselle d'Orléans, Jeanne d'Arc de Tchaikovsky also.
Yes,
I have
awesome.
done this debut. It's another one. It's very incredible. I like this. I like this music. I like to sing also in Russian, also if it's not easy. But I have a feeling with this language and this music.
Yes, but I imagine Mr. Gyaurov had a little influence on...
Yes, but he was very honest with me when I decided to do Tatiana. It was my first Russian role. He said, Mirella, I speak, I know, I am very well Russian, but I am not Russian. Fortunately for me, he said, but not for you. The Bulgar language is close in some moment to the Russian. But we have the same at least words. We have a pronunciation a little more hard. I don't want to give perhaps involontariamente, come si dice? Something
unwillingly.
Something not right. And for this reason, I prefer if you start to sing with a really Russian person. And I was in San Francisco. Susanna Lemberskaya, she worked for many years. I worked, I think, in the opera there. I started with her. Later, Nicolai, he controlled,
Yes.
He was very helping me, but he was really nice to because he's a really serious person. He don't want to give me some problems,
Well, it's very, very thoughtful, and you did record both of these complete operas, Pig Dame and Eugen Onegin. But as I said before, when we were not on the mic, you seem to have had a wonderful control, and you used the word prudenza in your establishing or determining what is good for you and what could be harmful for your career.
Yes, I think one artist must be very honest with himself, because you know very well what you can do. When you study, you have you feel if you can do well easily, or there are some problems. Perhaps one night, no. I escape from this because I respect really much my instrument, and also the audience, also everybody, because I have done so many roles. I still singing after 47 years. Can you imagine it? If I do mistakes, I am sure I will be not here now.
Well, the idea or the fact that you are still singing and you're still doing new roles proves just how well you judge your career. And I've certainly enjoyed this hour with you. Mirella Freni, who has been my guest now, and she is spending very little time in New York, and she's going back to Modena.
Yes, I go in Modena. I go in London for this Grammy Awards. I will be in Zurich after in Moscow because I have a concert with my husband to do. I come back. For this reason, I can stay longer here because I am busy in Europa. But I hope to come also another time. But also, if I don't sing, I wish to come like a tourist, because I adore New York. I adore really the United States. I feel very, very well here. It's not a problem for me.
And you're certainly more than welcome here. You have a huge, adoring fan club here, and I am a member now. And
thank you.
We wish you all the best. Have a wonderful trip home, and maybe someday we'll meet again.
I hope so. This is my big wish. Thank you.
Thank you very
everybody. Again, I thank all the audience in United States, but especially in New York, because I have sung more for many years here, because I love you, but I know you love me, and you give it to me. Incredible night with your applause, your love, affection. Thank you very, very much.
And we thank you.
Hello, this is Susan Graham. I'm speaking to you via telephone from Turin, Italy, where I'm performing the role of the composer in a production of Ariadne auf Naxos at Teatro Reggio. I remember having extremely large hair. I remember walking out on stage and feeling so dwarfed. I was fortunate to sing two arias that I just really loved. I sang Must the Winter Come So Soon and Parto Parto. I think it was the first time I had ever sung Parto Parto with an orchestra, and it was really very exciting. I mean, this is an audience that I think has a certain amount of, first of all, sympathy for these young singers who, in my own case, I was just barely out of school and you know, had entered the competition kind of as a fluke. And I remember the preliminaries, and I got through the first round, and I was amazed. And then I did, you know, the subsequent rounds, and every time that I got passed on to the next round, I would call my voice teacher just screaming into the phone and saying, I got passed on to the next round. And, you know, she would just say, that's very good, of course you did. You know, she wasn't surprised, but I was. Then we all talked about what we were going to wear, and I had a dress specially made for it. It was the biggest thing that ever happened to me, you know, up to that point. It was a psychological leap for me that occurred. Because, you know, as a young singer, you spend so much of your energy wondering if it's going to happen. And for me, winning that competition was the greatest shot in the arm that I could have asked for, because it gave me a sense of validity, you know, that out of the whole country of these young singers, I was one of 11 who were chosen, you know, to stand on that stage at the Metropolitan Opera and sing, you know, trot out my party songs with the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra. And it was really a thrill.
This is the class of '88, a class that met only once. The date was April 10th, the place, the stage of the Metropolitan Opera, and the occasion, the winners' concert of the Metropolitan Opera National Council auditions. 9 of the singers who performed that afternoon eventually went on to sing principal roles at the Met, and all of them have performed with major opera companies throughout the United States and Europe. Today we're hearing from 3 of the singers by phone, soprano Renee Fleming, mezzo Susan Graham, and tenor Richard Drews. 6 members of the class of '88 are here in the Texaco Media Center at the Met. Sopranos Elizabeth Carter, Carolyn James, and Heidi Grant Murphy. Mezzo Wendy Hoffman, tenor Ben HEPPNER, and baritone Haijing Fu. What do you remember most about the winners' concert?
Oh.
I don't think I remember anything about the concert. I remember the weeks before much more than the concert.
Fear is my overwhelming remembrance.
Yeah. Or who you shared the room with.
Well,
I was with Linda Key. I remember that.
Oh dear, I don't remember that. I do remember the concert.
And Heather, what do you remember about the concert?
I remember it was in, I think, second act set of Werther, or maybe third act.
Oh gosh, that's right.
And second, yes. And we had guys to page the door and, you know, all dressed up. I thought that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I had tried to think through all of the, because I had really not done well in the previous round to my standards. And
right.
so then but then the final concert I wanted to redeem myself, and so I remember studying very hard to try and get everything in, and including the audience, and not to be intimidated by the room, because when you look out from the stage onto the Metropolitan Opera House, I mean, this is what you've been thinking about your whole training, and it's intimidating.
Was it intimidating for the rest of it?
I had to be first. It was real intimidating.
Oh, Elizabeth Carter. Now tell us what that felt like.
Well, it felt more. I have never been so frightened as I was those 2 weeks leading up to that.
Well, while you were working, did you develop a sort of camaraderie among yourselves?
Yeah, I thought we did.
So.
Yeah.
Yes, well, we had some fun times, as I recall.
Tell me.
Well, I mean, I don't know that there was. Well, it was on the program. We're all sitting backstage, and I'm not certain who it was, whether it was Risa Stevens or just who, but they announced that in addition to the concert that we were giving, they were going to be giving this extra special Birgit Nilsson prize, and so we all had heard something was up. So at this particular point, I leapt to my feet and I said, "That's it! I changed my name to Sven."
I do remember this now.
And he went the rest of the week, he said, "Just call me Sven."
And as a result, actually, every time
we were too slow on the take, that's for sure.
As it turns out, I can't speak with Susan Graham or Renee Fleming without them calling me Sven at some point, and even you did just before we started here. So we had a great time. We had some fun times.
As you look back, how do you feel your arias went that day, the day of the winners' concert? A lot of raised eyebrows. Wendy Hoffman.
Well, I think my first aria went okay. You know, I did the Noble Seigneur, but then when I came back, I did the Orfeo aria. And I did it so slowly. I don't know why. And I know I was so way behind the orchestra, you know, and I didn't really know how to. It was so far. The orchestra was over there and the audience was there. And I could tell I was kind of not with everybody, you know, and I even called Earl afterwards, you know, and he was listening, and I said, "Well, how did I do?" And he said, "Well, you were behind." And I didn't know what to do at the time. I didn't know how to keep up with an orchestra. So I do remember that. I was a little slow on the second aria. So.
Haijing Fu, how did you do?
Well, you know, I even don't remember what aria I did.
You were great. I remember.
One I remember is Nemico della Patria. That's so, well, nervous enough to remember anything.
Listen, we remember Nemico della Patria.
We all do. We would always sit backstage, and all of us would go, "Ha!" when you would do that "ha" thing at the start. So.
Ben HEPPNER, what do you remember?
I sang, I think it was a Freischütz aria and then Meistersinger, and if you want to take out the mix-up I got in the Meistersinger aria, where I straight off in some other opera. As far as words were concerned, I kind of got mixed up. There's two very similar places, and I just happened to mix them up. But I got back on. Thank you to Joan, who was in the prompt box. And but I remember it went very, very well. It was a good day for me.
Elizabeth Carter.
It went pretty well. I remember my brother afterwards saying, "Boy, I thought you were going to miss the high note." Really? I didn't notice that. But it went all right. I sang Dal raggio lusinghiera and then Quando men vo. And I don't remember much except lights and a big dark space out in front, and that's about it.
Mm-hmm. Carolyn James.
Well, I remember my first aria was Chi bel sogno, and I was thrilled with it. I felt like I was absolutely on a cloud, and it was very fun. And then my second aria, Come Scoglio, a role I've never sung, and I think I've thought a lot about it later. I've thought, man, if I could sing it now, with what I know about the role, it would be such a different piece. Of course it would be. But it was so great singing in that house. Fantastic.
I'm sure it was. Yeah. Heidi, Heidi Grant Murphy.
You know, it's funny because first of all, I barely remember it. Partly, I think it was really different for me than a lot of these guys because I was so incredibly young.
How old were you?
She was our
Well,
baby.
I mean, it wasn't even just my age. I was 22, and my undergraduate was really mostly in education. So I'd only had a year of, vocal performance training. So I wasn't really all that scared because I was so ignorant. And, it's kind of nice. I look back on those years and I say, God, you know how nice it is to not know how hard this is supposed to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ignorance is bliss.
It really is. I listen to that tape and I say, sure, I do these arias differently, but I enjoy listening to them because I just sang them the way I sang them naturally and had a fun with them. And I mean, sure, there's goofy things that I do, but if I heard it now from a young singer, I'd smile because obviously this person, is enjoying it. Not to say that that's, always the best thing. But
people have said to me before when, they talk about the business in general, says, well, I guess you know what you were getting into. And I went, I don't think any of us know what we're getting into.
What did you get into as a result of the Winners' Concert? How professionally, what happened?
Oh.
You start working.
Yeah, I mean, it was for me. It was I couldn't have ever predicted what would have happened. I won the Birgit Nilsson Prize. Thank you, Sven.
Wherever you are.
And I ended up then going to. The Birgit calls me and said, Ben, I think you should sing Lohengrin. And I said, oh yes, that sounds like a good idea. Miss Nielsen, I have no idea. I mean, I didn't. I thought that was like Wagner or something. It was probably difficult. But I wasn't going to say no to Miss Nielsen. So I ended up singing it in Stockholm the following year, about a year later. And within a year after that, I made my La Scala debut as Stolzing, having already done it in Seattle. So it was... I mean, things happen so fast, and this is where I think my naivete came in, that I didn't know where I was half the time. I was on stage at La Scala. I didn't realize that this was one of the major places in the world. Or Covent Garden, I went and covered and ended up going on 3 or 6 times. That's a good cover job, by the way.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
But I wasn't prepared for it, and probably it was best for me.
Haijing Fu, how quickly did things happen for you?
Well, it wasn't that quick, but I wasn't quite ready for everything yet. But I made my debut at 90.
You made your Met debut?
Yeah, 90, then which is 2 years later.
Well, that's fast.
Yeah, that's fast.
Wendy Hoffman, how quickly did you make your Met debut?
Yeah, it was also in 90, I think, for the Parsifal. I was I think I was a Knappen with you, and then a few years later I did some of the Blumenmädchens, and then slowly moved into the Kundries, and it's all getting kind of big and weird right now, but that's how it all started. And then, you know, it's 8 years later, or I guess it's 9 years later, isn't it? Or 10 years later.
You want my watch?
Yeah.
Wendy, this is your 10th reunion. I guess you didn't know.
I'm one of those singers. I'm still like, you know, I'm now younger than I was like 3 years ago. So that's how you do it. You just forget.
Well, when we were in our teens, it was hard to remember. We don't have a memory from back then.
Yeah, that's it.
That's what it is, yeah.
Elizabeth Carter, what happened to you professionally after this?
Well, when we came in, we were talking about it being 10 years before you got here, Wendy. I'm sorry, but and I was saying it was a lifetime ago. It was. I was just getting out of conservatory in Philadelphia, and I got management for the first time. I didn't know whether I could actually make a professional career. This was kind of like my first airing in public, sort of, and I got management. I ended up with a sort of an apprenticeship group for a year, and then I made my professional debut the following summer at City Opera, and then the Mozart years came along, and I had never. The Met was the first place people came up to me and said, "Queen of the Night," and I went, "Do you think so?" Had never thought of it. You know?
Wow, that's amazing.
You know, and I've spent 90% of the last 10 years singing Queen of the Night, so.
And the first high G I've ever heard on stage.
It's the first one I've ever sung on stage. It's okay.
Unbelievable. That was fabulous.
Carolyn James, what was the greatest benefit for you?
Well, I was still at Juilliard at that point, and I actually felt like I was not as much of the group because I was living in the city and I didn't take the hotel room, which I think was a mistake. Now I wish I had, because I think I would have felt more chummy. Although later that summer, Heidi and I went to Wolf Trap, right? We were roommates. Well, sort of. We lived in the same house. And I went to another year of Juilliard and then started working right after that. Made my Met debut in '91.
And Heidi Grant Murphy.
Well, again, I was so young. The best thing that happened for me, I think, was the fact that I was able to join the Young Artists program right after that. And I mean, there's nothing like it for me. I don't think I would have gotten as much out of this competition as everyone else did, career-wise, because if I hadn't joined the program, because I was so young, and I really needed a lot more training and a lot more language study. And I mean, I remember just sitting there on the side of the stage watching these people and just blown away by Ben and, you know, Renee and Haijing and all these people. You know, they all knew what they were doing. It seemed to me. And as much as I loved singing and, you know, did my arias as well as could be expected, I had so much to learn, and I still do. But I think being able to join the Young Artist program was the best thing that happened for me. I had a nice 3 years to relax and grow a little bit, figure out, you know, what actually singing is about. Not just, you know, the logistics of it, but your life in singing. You know, we don't know what that's about.
Did you have any idea what a singer's life was like at that point?
Why don't they teach
Wendy
that?
Hoffman.
I mean, why isn't there like a class
You know
in
what,
music
Wendy,
school?
you can't teach this.
What
I
are the
suppose you
what
can,
are the
but
big
somebody should
surprises?
say something. You know, before you start doing this, somebody should just say, "You'll never see your husband.
Yes.
You'll never sleep in your own bed.
You won't be speaking English.
You won't be speaking English. You're going to have to learn other languages."
You'll have
I mean,
to
it's
learn
all
how the exchange rate.
Yeah, you know, it's a little crazy.
I have young artists come up and ask me what advice I can tell them. I said, well, you know, think about whether this is what you really want to do, because it's going to be a big change in your life. And if you decide this is really what you need to do with your life, great. Buy good luggage.
Very good luggage.
What future roles do you have in store? Wendy?
I go back and do the ring cycle again that I've done before, the Frickas and the Valtrautas. And then I do Brangena in Barcelona. So those are just the upcoming things, the roles.
Haijing?
I'm doing Stefano now, but the next season I come back for Traviata and Lucia, Small Negra. Yeah.
Ben Heppner.
Well, just in case anybody hasn't heard this, I'm doing Tristan in Seattle in the summer.
Right, we've heard about it. That's right.
It's like the whole world's coming to this. I sure hope I can sing it. I don't know. I don't know.
Elizabeth Carter.
Well, I'm going to be doing concert in Nashville, Tennessee with my husband. I'm going to be singing Elijah. He's going to be singing Elijah. I'll sing the soprano stuff. Then I've got some Queens lined up. Isn't that right? We're doing Queen once or twice. I'm also going to be doing Curly's Wife in Salt Lake, the Carlisle Floyd, and Donna Elvira in Knoxville. It's a new role for me. I usually do Anna. So that's the one role we share, isn't it? That's
right. The only one. I'm getting ready to do my first Trovatore, and have Aidas in several concerts.
And Heidi Grant Murphy?
Well, Mozart and Strauss, lots of Mozart, lots of Strauss. The Rameau year is coming up, so I have some Rameau, and lots of recitals and concerts.
Well, thank you very much, Elizabeth Carter, Haijing Fu, Ben Heppner, Wendy Hoffman, Carolyn James, and Heidi Grant Murphy. This is Bridget Paolucci returning you to Peter Allen in the Texaco broadcast booth.
Go, Peter.
Thank you, Bridget Paolucci and Ben Heppner. And thanks to all those 1988 winners of the National Council auditions for joining us today. And here's another winner from that year.
Hello, everybody. I'm Richard Drews, and I'm sitting here in a relaxed, beautiful, sunny Chicago afternoon. I just performed La Rondine in Washington, D.C., and I hope you're all having a great time. What I remember most is the tremendous talent. I was awestruck. I was so enamored and felt so much pride in being selected. It happened to be a big league type of event. I was no longer in the farm leagues. I was no longer playing stickball in the street. I was in the major leagues. And walking out on the stage of the Metropolitan Opera with that orchestra in that setting with a very eager audience is a once-in-a-lifetime event. And I can remember it vividly. And my tongue was dry, my knees were shaking, my heart was pounding. But then as soon as the opening chords of the Parmi vedere le lagrime started out, I was fine. I would say the one thing is to have fun, not only with this performance, but in what you embark upon with this career. Remember that there are a whole lot of great singers in the world and not a whole lot of jobs. But the one thing that every singer can maintain within themselves is a sense of joy and pride in what they're doing. No competition can take that away from you. Whether you win or lose, if you know within yourself that you have pride and joy in what you're doing, that's the most important thing.